Alright, guys, so I'm back with the new recording, and today the topic is gonna be very short, talking about signs. And so I think the Bible talks a bit about signs, like miraculous types of signs, or somebody praying for a sign and then something happening, right? So I'm not sure if people have these experiences often, but if you have, they're pretty freaky. So it's just something that came to my mind because this morning, like I'm not like a heavy prayer. Like I don't like pray every day all the time. But, this morning I was just having one of those days, and I was like, I always know that like praying helps and it can help a situation feel a little bit better. So I was like, well, let me just do this morning, because this morning was a bit of a struggle. So I woke up and I was like, okay, like, let me pray a little bit. And I did feel better. And my mind kind of went to this place that was like, like, remember that you've recently seen some signs and you've recently had like experiences of some form. And so why are you, like, I don't know if I was like doubting myself, or more like kind of like I was definitely moody. I was in like a bad mood for like no apparent reason, with just kind of like thinking about all kinds of like negative stuff that's like, like not pleasant. And I was just like, I woke up kind of just like in a shit mood. So I was like, this is just how my day is going to be. And it was just kind of like this kind of thought came to my mind that isn't a normal thought that I would have. That's usually like, hey, why don't you just pray? Because usually I just would start out a day and then just go on like that and just be like, I'll eventually feel better once I just start working or whatever. And it usually just goes away. But I remember purposely like thinking about, okay, let me pray. And then at the same time I was thinking, like, is this even gonna be like helpful? But there was kind of a pull to it. It wasn't really me. It was more like I felt like I was delaying starting or delaying actually doing it, like hesitant. It was kind of like me that was like not really trying to like engage, but I kind of felt like a pull to do it. And so I just found it interesting that I just kind of prayed like the way I normally do. And usually, like, I can kind of describe like the method I use, but it's kind of like, it's very visual. Like I have like this visual method of, putting myself in a time and place, a peaceful kind of environment mentally in my head. Like I kind of imagine that place. And almost all the time when I'm praying, when I actually have time to sit and do it, and like when I'm actually not just like praying like on the fly, when I'm actually like intentionally like sitting doing it like in a quiet place, I tend to really kind of focus, like it's kind of like a visualization. Like I do like like an imagery kind of like visualization of like, where am I, like, mentally, like, so I kind of like mentally go to another place, and it's kind of always the same. There are like 2 or 3 places in my mind that I kind of go, and they kind of all have their own separate purpose. And so the place that I was in this morning, where I kind of like did the imagery and visualized where I was, it was a familiar place, and it kind of helps me focus when I do that, because it's like in my mind it's like a whole, like almost like imagined environment or it's kind of like almost like literally if you were to like go over to your buddy's house and like open the door and it's like it's their house and it's like, the layout, who should or shouldn't be there. It's basically, that's how it helps me to just do that. So basically I did that, and then the thought that was coming into my mind was like you've recently asked for signs, you've recently had some experiences, so why are you in this place mentally right now when you know that there's more powerful things at hand that are, moving within your life, that you're just totally overlooking that and totally in your head about this other, like, bullshit kind of stuff. Like, that was kind of like I was like, it was kind of more like, this isn't accurate. Where your head is going is not accurate. These thoughts and these, the stuff that's distressing to you this morning is coming from some place that you're feeding into and you're buying into it, and you're not looking at the full picture. You're not looking at, things that have happened recently that, you're just kind of like discounting that, It's kind of almost like it's almost like if you went, like, say if you're like dating somebody and you go on like this date and like they buy you like something elaborate, like a car or something, it's like they buy you a car and then they start working like crazy for like a month, and then at the end of the month you're like complaining at your partner like, fuck, like you don't spend time with me, like you haven't bought me anything, you never did anything for me. But it's like, dude, I just bought you this fancy nice new car, and that's why I don't have time to spend with you, because I'm working too much now. It's kind of like, it's almost like not seeing the full picture, right? So that's where my head started out, was like this very one-sided view. And then I kind of went from there after the praying, after that, visualizing and just kind of like getting my head kind of like more on the accurate side of what was actually happening. I was like, yeah, like, why am I even spending all this energy thinking about all these things when I don't need to think about them? Like, it's not bringing me any benefit. It's just making me stressed out. And this actually just, it happened. There was stuff that was like not even immediate. It's not even anything that would immediately be concerning or a problem. So it's like, why are you even like thinking about this right now and spending all your energy? This is like before work, and mind you, I wake up pretty early, so it wasn't like right before work. It was like I had a good hour or so to be like thinking like this. So it was like, well, I'm gonna be thinking about this for a while until I start work. So yeah, so that was kind of the context. But let's talk about that concept of signs for a second, because it's an interesting topic. It's really interesting, because what usually happens is most people discount signs, right? They're like, let's try our best to explain this away, right? So I remember it must have been either like my first couple years of college. I think it was my first couple years of college. We used to have this Friday night Vespers kind of Bible study group called Teen Rap. And it usually was teens, and then the whole cohort of us kind of grew up to like college age. So we kind of all stayed in that group to like, I think the guy who was the youth pastor to collegiate pastor, he moved pretty much. But then some other people also kind of made like a collegiate group. But this teen rap group, I remember like, and I've told the story to friends before, but I remember this leader, the guy in charge, was like, his daughter was a friend of ours. She's like a year older than me or something. And me and all the guys, like I was friends with all the guys, still am, and like we kind of like had plans to go to Not Scary Farm, And then we went, we bought the tickets in advance. I think back then they were like $35 each or something. And we were going to go to Knott's Scary Farm. And we were at an age where we could drive places ourselves. Like we had a couple friends with cars. And we were just going to go and drive and be there and hang out and do the Knott's Scary Farm thing. And then, this is an Adventist, very religious community of people that don't even eat meat or don't even break the Sabbath. So talking about Halloween and Knott's Scary Farm and things like that, that's definitely not something that people are trying to celebrate, right? So the youth pastor, this guy, he was like, or collegiate pastor, he was like, because he had two separate roles. At different times in my life. So I don't remember if he was technically the collegiate pastor then or what, but I want to say it was like early college, so we'll say collegiate pastor. He was the collegiate pastor, and he told us, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was just like, I don't really, what did he say? Like, I don't really, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but I think you guys know kind of what you feel is right to do about this. And I would urge you to not go and kind of make your own decision about this. And we were like, dude, we already paid for the tickets. And the only reason he brought it up is because his daughter had tickets to go with us. And I guess she wasn't allowed to go. He told her she couldn't come with us, or she couldn't go at all. And then she brought it up to him, and then he brought it up to the rest of the group. And not everybody in the group was gonna go. It was like probably like 6 of us or so, and then maybe it was a group of like 15 or so. And so I remember being kind of a knucklehead, and I was like, all right, like, and he was like, well, let's pray on this, because we were like ending that Vespers, and he was like, well, let's pray on this. And we had church the next day. Mind you, this is Adventist, so it's Friday night. We're having this Vespers at this guy's house. And then Saturday morning, we were all going to meet. He was also our Sabbath school teacher, so we would usually see him 9 a.m., 9:30 on a Saturday morning as well. And it was usually the same group or similar people from that group. Some people from the teen rap group went to church. Some people didn't go to that church. Some people were friends from the schools around or the neighborhood, and then there were some other friends that went to the church that we would see at the church that never went to teen rap. And so it was like there was some overlap, but not fully. And so I remember he was like, why don't we just pray on it and see, kind of like, if you guys can get some guidance. And I was like, why don't we ask God for a sign if he really doesn't want us to go? Like, I was kind of saying it like in a sarcastic, knuckleheaded kind of way. Like, why don't we just ask God for a sign? And I can't remember exactly the prayer that he said, but I remember him putting it out there. And I want to say that he did say, like, praying for a sign or something, but I remember mentioning it, and it was kind of like sarcastic. Like, I wasn't like, yeah, we're not going to get a sign and we're just going to go to Knott's Scary Farm, because in my head I was like, yeah, I respect this guy, I respect his opinions, I know the mindset he's coming from, and I don't really fully agree that it's for the best of your physical, mental, and emotional health to be like in a situation where your body's being like triggered to be frightened for no apparent reason. That's not necessarily good for you. But and also like themes about death and like killing and all that kind of like it's kind of more a bit on the negative side. If you're gonna be like pretty strict about it, that makes sense, because he was really strict, so it's like it makes sense where he's coming from. But the thing that I noticed was, that I wasn't planning on changing my mind, really. Like, I was like, I'm considering what he's saying, but I'm not really, I already bought the tickets. And at that time in my life, $35 was quite a bit of money. And we had gone the year before, and it was pretty exciting, and we liked it. So we already knew we liked it, and we had planned to go back again. So, Teen Rap ends. It's Friday night. It's probably like 9. I think we did 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. Our parents usually came, or we usually went home around 10ish. And then we'd wake up and go to church the next morning for Sabbath school. So that night, while we're all fast asleep, and I don't know what time, but I have insomnia, so let's say I got home at 10:30, it probably wasn't even 11. It was probably later than 11 o'clock. There was an earthquake. And this is in LA. So yes, there are earthquakes in LA. Southern California has earthquakes. So if people want to explain things away, you can explain it away. But there was an earthquake that night. And I felt it. And some other family members felt it. My brother felt it. He was also in that teen rap group. The youth pastor felt it, or collegiate pastor. And some other people in that group felt it too. Not everybody felt it. So we go to Sabbath school the next day. And I think he asked me, like, so did you get your sign? And I was like, yeah. And that scared the crap out of me. Like, I can't even tell you how much that scared the crap out of me. And it was an interesting earthquake. Like, from what I recall, there weren't any deaths or injuries from it necessarily. Like, there were, because usually, earthquakes, something does happen. I don't remember hearing or seeing anything about like reported deaths or anything like that. I just remember it was an earthquake, specifically the same night that, we had asked for a sign. So that was the first time I ever asked that. And I never really had the confidence from then to ask too many more times that specifically, and especially not in a very sarcastic way. And mind you, I hate earthquakes. They terrify me. So an earthquake got my attention. So that was the first one. But I kind of wanted to talk also about something more recent. So near Thanksgiving, and this is COVID 2020, right? So near Thanksgiving, I was, at the family's house. This Thanksgiving, it was just me and my mom, because nobody else could really travel because of work and because of all the stay-at-home orders and things like this. And so me and my mom had our nice, small Thanksgiving. It was really amazing. She did a great job cooking and everything. And I remember, I started diving back into scriptures, into different, biblical passages, different books, into just a lot of religious things. And I think it was mostly just some stuff for the podcast. So I was because a lot of my religious related type books, I keep them in my family's house. It's still there, primarily because I don't like to accumulate a lot of stuff where I live. So I kind of use my bedroom at the family's house as kind of like a storage in a way. It's kind of like the stuff I don't really want to toss, but I'm not actively using it either. But it's not all junk. A lot of it's books and stuff. And so I had books up there, and I was reading some books, and I got really into some books that I had wanted to talk about and review and learn more stuff about. And I don't know what day it was, but I was working. I was working remotely, and we have work laptops, right? So I want to say it was a Friday night. That wouldn't make sense because I didn't work Friday night. Friday. That would have meant that I worked Friday in the daytime. But let me see. I gotta check the days of the calendar. So let me see. Thanksgiving was Thursday the 26th. So that means I was off. It could have been, okay, so it could have been Friday, December 4th, because I was still off then. Because I feel like it was no, that doesn't make sense. Because I feel like I had been working that morning. I'm trying to think. Because we were off on Friday the 27th. And I took days off from the 1st through the... Let me see. No, I took off the 2nd. I took off the 2nd and went back to work on the 9th of December. And so, but I was in town at my family's house from late Wednesday the 25th all the way through, I don't know what day. I left maybe at Thursday the 3rd or something. And it's important for me to get these dates right because there's a piece that kind of has to do with work. And so I remember, I'm trying to remember why. Okay, so I was delving into all these books and old things that I had that were kind of like religious related topics. And I remember, like, in my mind, I was like, I really want to get back into, like, praying and, like, you know, see if I can get, like, a connection with God or with something. Because, I want to, like, experience something because it's been, like, forever. And I'm kind of, like, bored with religion. I'm bored with, like, the spirituality stuff. I'm, like, it's COVID, dude. I'm getting bored with stuff. I'm restless. So I was like, I'm bored with all this. I'm not noticing anything changing. I'm not noticing anything exciting happening. I wish that I would, like, experience something. And so I remember, I don't remember if I was meditating before, but I remember praying. And again, I was kind of like visualizing the place that I was in. I don't pray visualizing the spot that I'm actually sitting when I'm doing the praying. But when I was praying, I was visualizing the place where I mentally go. Like an imagery kind of technique, just like that. And so I was visualizing this place and just sitting there. And what the experience was like sitting there. And I don't even know how to explain this. But I think I'd been working the day before, right? Mind you, I'm working remotely. I'd been working the day before. I get off work at 4. And then, I have a work laptop. It was on my desk in the bedroom. And so, it was off. It had been off for like hours. This is like the middle of the night. It was like my mom had already gone to sleep. It was probably like 11:30 at night, 10:30 at night, 12:30 at night. It was late. And so I remember, just kind of like having this like feeling kind of coming over me. Like I had been praying, but I was no longer praying at this point, and I was kind of like just sitting kind of in silence, but in this place where I had this imagery. Like I was kind of just like, it's kind of like my imagination, really. Like I just think about the same place all the time where I go. And so I was just mentally thinking about sitting in this place, doing nothing, just hoping that something would happen. So I had this, it was like a physical sensation. Don't know what it was. I can't explain it very well. It almost felt like, okay, so a thin cloth. So like, if you know the way it feels like when you have like if you could like imagine standing and having like a sheet like just kind of draped over your head, and then like, but in a way it felt like that. It felt like a very light pressure of some sort, like a sheet or like something like touching me, but it was like it went like kind of top to bottom, like head to toe, slowly. It was like external and internal, and it was enough to feel like something actually there. Like it wasn't like a questionable thing, like, oh, like an ant crawled on my leg or something. It wasn't like that. It was like a full thing that like started at one place and like ended at another place. And I'd say the duration of time was like we'll give it like 10-15 seconds. It was lengthy enough that I remember like opening my eyes and just being like, okay, this needs to stop, because like, okay, I'm actually like, something's actually happening. And so I remember taking a few breaths, and I was like, okay, maybe it was nothing, and then all of a sudden this sound comes from my computer. You know that Windows sound when Windows is like rebooting? So the sound comes from my computer, like dun dun dun, or whatever that tune is that like Windows makes when like your computer turns itself on. And I know I turned it off. I don't think it was on updates. And that's just the weird part, because it's my work laptop. So I think it just turned on, like, and the volume was on. And this happened like seconds after this other experience. And of course I freaked out. Of course I was like, what was that? You know, like, what is going on? And it's just stuff like that. It's just a little odd that comes up, and it's not anything that's like, you know, something I can't fully explain, because it's like I'm asking for experiences and then they happened like immediately within a short period of time. And it's stuff that like my senses witnessed. And it's stuff that could just kind of happen by itself too, without any kind of intervention of any kind. It's possible that, you know, a glitchy Windows computer laptop turns itself on. I mean, they do that, but this one hasn't done it since, and it never did it before. I've been using this from March, and that was all the way up until late November, and it was brand new. So I don't know what to make of it, but I just wanted to put that out there, that things happen. It wasn't negative. It was just interesting, you know. But I say all that, you know, coming back to what I was talking about earlier, that, you know, that kind of came to my mind this morning when I was like having a moment, and then you know, that came to my mind. I was like, it was just a thought that was like, didn't this thing just happen the other day, like just a few weeks back? Didn't this interesting experience just happen, and now here you are like thinking about all this other nonsense? And so yeah, it was just kind of a nice way to put things into perspective. I enjoyed it, in a spooky kind of way. I mean, I try not to play with that kind of stuff, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, what are you gonna do, you know? Like, sometimes, I don't know, like, sometimes it's like, why not? Like, if there's stuff out there in the universe, why not try to connect with whatever the heck it is? I don't see any reason why not to. It's just interesting and odd when you don't really know exactly what it is. There's no like clarity as to like what exactly is happening and why. What does it mean? Who the heck knows? If anybody knows, you can tell me, because I don't really know. But I'm gonna cut this off at nearly 30 minutes. I didn't even think it would be this long, but yeah, theory and theology, guys. I'll be coming back at you guys with some more hopefully interesting topics. And I'll see what people think. All right, thanks for listening.